You are sitting in JPMorgan's deal room. On the screen, 4,250,000 customers, $175 million on the table. Almost none of those people exist. How do you sell 4 million customers who don't exist to America's biggest bank and almost walk away clean? The answer is one of the most audacious frauds in American startup history. $175 million, the country's largest bank. A 20-something founder on Forbes' 30 Under 30 list, a list the magazine would later regret, placing her in their hall of shame. A guilty verdict on 4 federal counts. And right now, in June 2026, an active push for a presidential pardon backed by one of the most connected investors in America. The conviction happened. The sentence is real. But the coup may not be over. Here is exactly how the fake customer machine was built and how close it came to being permanent. Charlie Javice founded Frank in 2016. The pitch was genuinely simple and genuinely needed. The FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, is one of the most confusing documents in America. Millions of students leave money on the table every year because the form is too hard, the deadline's too buried, the system too opaque. Frank said it could fix that. Upload your documents, answer a few questions, get your aid eligibility in minutes instead of hours. The federal government disperses over $100 billion a year in student grants and loans. Frank wanted to be the front door to all of it. Real product, real problem. And Javice was a sharp, media-savvy Wharton graduate who knew exactly how to tell that story. By 2019, Forbes had her on their 30 Under 30 list, a platform she used to position Frank not just as a tool, but as a movement. The kind of company that makes investors feel like they are early on something important. The kind of founder that makes banks feel like they are missing out. The pitch to banks had one number at the center: 4.25 million users. A captive audience of college students, every one of them. A future loan, a future credit card, a future account. For JPMorgan, that number wasn't just attractive. It was the entire thesis. JPMorgan CEO Jamie Dimon had made no secret of the bank's ambition to capture young customers. The college student market was expensive to reach and slow to monetize, unless you caught them at 18, before they built loyalty anywhere else. Frank looked like a shortcut to millions of them, already engaged, already trusting the platform, at exactly the moment they were entering adult financial life. That was the bait, and in 2021, JPMorgan took it. But the number at the center of the deal, 4.25 million, was almost entirely fiction. The real count, fewer than 300,000, which means someone had to build the other 4 million, and that's the part nobody in that deal room was supposed to see. When JPMorgan's due diligence team asks for raw user data in the summer of 2021, the response is not smooth. It's delayed, then restricted, then refused. In a $175 million acquisition, that is a 5-alarm fire, deal teams don't walk away from user data in a user data deal. The pressure lands inside Frank, and inside Frank, it lands on the director of engineering. The request is to create a synthetic dataset artificially generated records to match the user numbers being pitched externally. The engineer raises the obvious question: is this legal? Javice's response: per trial testimony and the DOJ press release, we don't want to end up in orange jumpsuits. The engineer declined. He walked away. That refusal is the moment the fraud shifts from ambition to construction. Because Javice doesn't stop, she goes outside. A data science professor is engaged a specialist with the tools to generate synthetic datasets at scale. The arrangement costs approximately $18,000. Not a massive investment for a transaction this size, just enough to commission the work. What comes back is not a user base. It is a simulation of one. Millions of synthetic student profiles, names, email addresses, demographic patterns, behavioral signals, all algorithmically generated to resemble real people. None of them ever opened a Frank account. None of them ever filled out a FAFSA through the platform. Statistical constructions, built to pass as human at a distance. That is layer one. But synthetic data alone has a problem. It looks too clean. Real data sets are messy. They have noise, gaps, inconsistency. A dataset of pure fabrications, even sophisticated ones, can raise flags if someone examines the patterns closely. So a second move happens. Separately, quietly, a real list of student records, approximately 4.5 million of them, is purchased from an outside source for approximately $105,000. Not to replace the synthetic data, to wrap around it. to add the texture of reality at the edges of the fabrication. Two separate moves, two separate costs, one engine. The combined dataset goes to an agreed third-party vendor for validation. According to prosecutors, it passes. The count confirms above 4.25 million rows. The confirmation loops back to JPMorgan, and the hesitation disappears. The machine didn't just fool the bank, it was built to survive the verification step. But closing the deal was only half the problem because now she had to walk into the bank and keep the illusion running. September 2021. The deal closes at $175 million. Javice collects the acquisition proceeds, plus a retention package worth approximately $20 million, and steps inside JPMorgan as a managing director, overseeing student-focused products at Chase. On the outside, a textbook founder exit, covered everywhere as a win. A young woman who built something real, scaled it to millions of users, and landed at the biggest bank in America. On the inside, a database of phantom customers, sitting inside one of the most sophisticated financial institutions in the world. And inside JPMorgan, the integration team is already moving. The bank didn't buy Frank as a product, it bought Frank as a pipeline. The entire strategic logic of the acquisition was to reach millions of college students who already trusted the platform and convert them into JPMorgan account holders. That meant campaigns, outreach, marketing emails to every one of those 4.25 million accounts. The integration team has a list. They are preparing to contact every name on it. The problem: the list is almost entirely fake, and a marketing email sent to a synthetic address doesn't bounce quietly. It bounces loudly, in aggregate, in a way that the analytics team cannot miss. The clock is already running. Fake addresses cannot survive a real campaign. For 14 months, Javice held the line. No public alarm, no internal breakdown. The institution moves slowly, and the integration is complex, and there is always another delay between the strategy meeting and the actual send. But the email campaign is already on the roadmap. The marketing team has a launch date. She had the money, she had the title, but somewhere in JPMorgan's systems, 4 million phantom accounts were waiting for an inbox that would never open, and the send button was coming. The test arrives. JPMorgan runs a marketing email blast across what it believes to be millions of active student accounts. The results come back broken. The great majority of the emails never deliver. They hit addresses that don't exist, domains that were never real, inboxes that were never opened. What was supposed to be a pipeline of millions of engaged young customers returns almost nothing. JPMorgan CEO Jamie Dimon would later call the acquisition a huge mistake. But first, the bank has to understand exactly what it bought. The silence is the signal. JPMorgan's internal team begins pulling the data apart, tracing file structures, examining origin logs, checking how the numbers were actually built. Buried inside the technical record, they find it: email chains connecting Frank to an outside professor paid to generate synthetic profiles. This is no longer a performance problem. It is construction. It is intentional. December 2022. JPMorgan files a civil lawsuit against Javice and her co-defendant, alleging the data reported by Frank was largely fabricated. The bank's own complaint states the real user count fewer than 300,000 against the 4.25 million claimed at acquisition. April 2023. The SEC files its own complaint. Criminal charges followed shortly after, with both defendants indicted on 4 counts in Manhattan federal court. A 6-week trial in early 2025 lays out every layer of the machine: the synthetic data, the real list purchased to disguise it, the professor payments, the email chains tying it all together. The 28th of March, 2025. Charlie Javice is found guilty on all 4 counts: securities fraud, wire fraud, bank fraud, and conspiracy. Her co-defendant is convicted on all counts as well. The number that sold the bank was the number that destroyed her. But the story doesn't end at a verdict. The 29th of September, 2025. U.S. District Judge Alvin Hellerstein sentences Charlie Javice to 85 months in federal prison. $287 million in restitution ordered to JPMorgan, joint and several with her co-defendant. $22 million in forfeiture, on top of that the stock, the bonuses, the managing director pay. Over $300 million total leaving her name. Markets require honesty, the judge tells her. It's biblical. She is currently free on bail, appealing the conviction. In March 2026, Hellerstein rejected her motion for a new trial. Ruling his clerk's employment at JPMorgan's outside law firm did not create an appearance of partiality. The conviction stands. The appeal continues. And then June 2026, the new variable. Charlie Javice is seeking a presidential pardon from the Trump administration. Her name has not appeared on a formal DOJ clemency list. The pardon has not been granted. She is trying. Her most visible backer is Mark Rowan, CEO of Apollo Global Management, an early Frank investor who testified on her behalf at trial. Rowan doesn't just have access to the Trump White House. He was considered for Treasury Secretary. He sits on 2 governing bodies appointed in January 2026. He has donated to Trump's campaigns. When Rowan makes a call, it lands somewhere that matters. And the Trump administration is weighing approximately 250 pardons this summer, tied to the nation's 250th anniversary. Javice's camp is in that window. Go back to the question at the start. How do you sell 4 million customers who don't exist to America's biggest bank and almost walk away clean? She already did, once. The conviction is real. The sentence is real. The pardon push is real. And as of today, the answer is still maybe.